Hello, this is Shelby from Three Divine Feminines. Thank you for joining us for today's live. I am going to be talking with Jim at Blackstone Wolf. It says, hello, thank you for joining me. Jim should be here soon. I'm going to be talking to Jim today about his divine love connection and different things that have helped him on his journey. And if you guys have, hello, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, go ahead and click the question mark box and we will make sure that Jim or I answer you at the end. This is questions about the divine love journey. Yeah, thank you for being here. Just waiting for Jim to pop on. So anyways, my name is Shelby. I'm with Three Divine Feminines. Originally, when we started this page, there was 3 of us, but I'm pretty much the only one that does any posts on here anymore. Abby, it's been since probably December, but I'm sure she'll be back. And then Audrey ended up stepping away from the journey. Looks like Jim is here. So yeah, he's going to be clicking to join. Again, if you have any questions about the divine love journey that you want Jim or I to answer, go ahead and put them in the question mark box. And I think you press the little camera at the bottom, Jim, and then I'll be able to get you on here with me. Hello, Danielle. Thanks for joining. Just waiting for the technical stuff to work itself out, and then we will get to this live. Ooh, here we go. So I hope everybody had a great week. I know here in Washington, it has been beautiful. Hey, Jim.
Howdy.
Thanks for joining. Let's see here. I cut my head off. There we go. Wait. Better? Better. How are you?
Good, good. Am I on there?
You're on here.
All right.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Jim's divine love journey and different things that have helped him on his journey. And we were chatting the other day, and I think you said that you had found a new perspective on the journey, and you're going to be sharing that as well, right?
Well, continual new perspectives. Yeah, that's kind of the deal.
Right? Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. My first question is, when did you encounter your divine counterpart?
Well, it's interesting. We met, I think, around 2012. And at that time, neither of us had ever heard of Twin Flame. I didn't learn that term until 3 or 4 years later. But we just encountered each other in a friend group, a number of different mutual friends, and things just kind of went from there over a natural course for a while.
Okay. And was there any magic surrounding it at the time? Any signs that you were getting?
Well, not at all at the time, because I was unaware. In 2012, I would say would be really the threshold. Looking back now for when my spiritual awakening really started. So it's pretty synchronistic that that's when we met, although completely unaware of any of these things at the time. So I'd kind of like I find that endearing that that's part of the story too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. The next part is to share your story with us.
Okay. Well, I'd kind of like to skip through the story pretty quick and launch more without just going through the minutia of all of it, because it is a story, and really extract more of the expansion, spiritual lessons, and all those kinds of things. And the new level of awareness, yeah, is really more important to me than the historical things. But yeah. But I guess when we met, like I said, we were just friends, and I'd come out of a divorce a couple of years before, and it was really interesting to kind of set this up. when I came out of that marriage, I was, of course, completely unaware of any of these spiritual, things at that time. But
Right.
the marriage counselor we were going to, is always a nice end to a marriage too. They usually couples counseling is a gateway to everything dissolving. Um,
Yeah.
but it did. And then, but I really enjoyed that therapist. So I continued on with her just for my own personal journey. And I immediately started dating someone within a few months. And then I had those relational things to bring into therapy. And this lady said, I'll just never forget this. She said, Jim, you're a relationship guy. I'm like, wait, what? I've never heard that. But it did not struck me as a compliment. I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound good at all. So, yeah. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like, I want to have a romantic partner or these experiences or whatever. She said, do you trust God? I'm like, well, of course. She said, well, just be platonic friends with every woman you meet from here forward in your life, and just build a friendship foundation first. And then she said, every relationship I've had previous has been a castle built on sand, and they're glowy and shiny, but they always crumble. So I was just like,
Right.
that really makes sense. So from that point forward, everything changed. Yeah.
Nice.
And consequently have many beautiful friendships in my life today that wouldn't have existed otherwise. So, but that's the setup. So when my twin and I met, that's the mode I was in and still am today to certain respects. So we just continued on navigating around our different experiences, and like we do. And about 3 years had gone by, and she was coming around quite a lot, like almost every day after work. And it was very endearing. She'd forgot, later on I reminded her she said this, but she just said, Jim, you're my best friend. And I'm 23 years older, mind you, too. So this is, societal observations are going to be very judgmental to these things. So
Right.
that's offered all the catalytic challenges as well. But that was really awesome for me because it validated that I didn't have any, wasn't trying to, have any intentions with her. I'm just kind of being, very present and letting things be what they are with her and everyone in my life. But that was really endearing that she saw me as that at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've told John that he's my best friend too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So continuing on, then we started to have some more, interesting encounters that were of the private nature, and but then, riddled with a little, not for me so much, 'cause I'm the older one, I don't really care, but she's riddled with maybe a little, guilt or fear of judgment, those kinds of things. So, but looking back, not understanding this still at the time, those magnetic twin flame, attractions that only exist with twins. It's very
Yeah.
different attachment. So that I've learned those are very big different things. But so those were great challenges. So now we're into this, more evolving relationship where we're just, we're on these independent journeys, but we're coming together and getting closer. And then those fearful things, and judgments, which were very, very present from other people. Then there would be like a fearful thing, and there'd be a drift apart for a while, and all kinds of different ways. So we started to develop these characteristics like that went on for, confusing time. Yeah.
Okay. And so during those confusing times and during your journey, what are some of the most helpful things that you found on this journey?
During that era, well, I guess many things. Prioritizing intuitively and comparing to like societal judgments, but is also part of the what I'd learned a little bit later than looking back. I was kind of naturally doing this, and she was as well. Those societal, like I see them as programming, religious and societal programming, like you're supposed to do within so many years of another person or whatever. So there's all these things
Right.
along, but those things have served to looking inside to prioritizing interacting with your twin however you choose to over anything else. So I started to learn those things. But then later on, once I learned about what twin flame was, and she and I learned that together, looking back to this chapter, we kind of already started to embrace that process where those catalytic things that when we would come together in all the different ways, would serve to cause us to look inside and realize those are all 3D, programming things that are in the physical and are extremely limited, like, and maybe even toxic, you might say, but causing us to
I
start
agree.
and begin the spiritual ascension process, which to me is really what the twin flame journey is really about.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I know you like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So will you share with us then your perspective at this time on the Twin Flame Journey, or did you already do that?
No. I think I want to set it up a little bit more because there's a couple more things along the way.
Okay, yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, and jump in. Yeah, interrupt me. Probably about I don't know, 2016 maybe. Kind of loosely remembering. My daughter actually, who's responsible for my twin and I meeting each other ultimately too, is a very fascinating thing. But that came with those challenges as well, which
Yeah,
we all had to embrace and suffer and grow through. So those are some of the biggest ones. But she asked me if I had ever heard of Twin Flame, and I hadn't at all. So this was one of those chapters where my twin had kind of drifted away for a few months, and so I wasn't interacting with her. But so during this had become our norm at this point, so I just came to embrace it as how it's going to be, and not chasing her down or being jealous or any of that crap.
right.
I just did a quick Google thing about twin flames, and I saw something somewhere, and I thought, okay, this is still not understanding, but I could feel there was something vital with it. So I thought, I'm going to be really objective and organic with this and not learn this and then present it to my twin next time she comes around, because that would come off kind of like a little salesy or whatever. I'm trying to maybe lure her or convince her of something. So
Right.
I set it aside, and then a few months later, I'll never forget this particular day. This was the day that we discovered it together. I was literally homesick with the flu, just in bed for like a week, and we started interacting again, and we were texting one day, and she had like an hour-long break at work. So I said, "Hey, have you heard of this?" And she said, "No." But I had discovered a 10-minute video on somebody's YouTube channel that listed the characteristics of twin flames. And so
Okay.
I'm laying on my couch sick, and she's on her break at work, but we're watching it together at the same time and texting as we're watching it. And every single phrase in these characteristics explained who we are to each other. And so
Yeah.
she's very enthusiastic, very jovial with her behavior and whatnot. So it's kind of funny. So she got really excited, and I could feel, and we both felt the relief that now we can understand why we have this attraction to each other that is undeniable. We can begin to lean into it more without having to be challenged with the guilt of, all the challenges that come with, judgments and things.
Right.
So
And I've noticed that all twin flame connections have some sort of block like that. Not necessarily age, but, sometimes the partner is married or
oh yeah,
has another relationship, or in my case, he's hospitalized.
yeah.
So,
And I'd learned during that era. So I dove deep into the twin flame thing. I just became obsessed with the community and social media and everything I could find anywhere. And those same kind of things I discovered in that is, and I've been single this whole time, but she's had another guy in and out of her life. So she's challenged with that as well. She's attracted to this other person for those reasons, but then here I am as well. So it'd be like if she does that as well, because that's extremely common. I've learned for one or both twins to be in.
oh,
So it offers up those opportunities to grow.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And prioritize. So then we went along for the next couple of years, and now we're embracing it a little bit more and learning as we go. And I'm deep into the community, and she's following my lead a lot. The big thing I did learn to embrace that made our story, which the ones that have the age difference so beautiful, is the contrast from the older person has some life wisdom and different perspective, but then the younger person has the youthful energy, and those two things combined actually really fuse together something unique that you wouldn't get otherwise. So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Definitely complements each other.
Okay, so then come up to like 2017, and this is when some pretty interesting challenges came up from my one daughter, who was responsible for us to meet. So that became really hard for her. So she and I had to navigate through some really tough waters, and that consequently, backlashed on my twin. So those upheavals were pretty aggressive for quite a while. But we've all talked about this later and come in complete harmony about it, and it gave me an opportunity to really explain to my daughter this is a soul to soul thing, it has nothing to do with the physical body at all, and which has offered her an opportunity to grow as well, and she and I to embrace each other more and have a deeper father daughter relationship also, which wouldn't be as amplified if that didn't happen. So
That's great.
it is.
That's great.
So okay, so in 2017 I did a little bit of a life change. I moved out to the country and spent like a year, not in solitude, but much more alone than I had been before, which I knew was going to serve me well. So spiritual. I was just intuitively led to that. So during that era, I spent a lot of time listening to, I forget the YouTube channel. It might have been DNA Awakening or one of those, but it was a lady in Hawaii that was giving almost daily twin flame channelings. And so I was listening to those. And so that was kind of my guide at that point. So I was really, really into that. And my twin, circled back around after several months and came to me. I've never pursued her. It's always been her being drawn back to me, which makes it, natural and beautiful and in balance,
Yeah.
So she rolls back in one day through a series of very beautiful synchronistic events that brought us together, a dream and a job and another friend. And all of a sudden here we are standing in front of each other again. It was pretty, pretty awesome. But so we spent some time together during that era, and then another little drift apart, which was the normal thing. And during that second chapter that year, the lady with the YouTube channel mentioned something about her story, and she just changed the whole game. She said the twin flame journey is not a journey to come in physical union with another person in the physical. She said it's a union to yourself and about self-love. That I'll never forget that moment. When I first heard that, I'm like, this chick has just given up, which happens everywhere. Most people do get frustrated and give up.
Oh yeah.
But I thought, well, she just doesn't. I'm like, I'm stronger than this, so screw her. I'm just going to move on. And I never listened to her again because but I wasn't ready to hear that then. I hadn't come to that because I'm like, I want the girl. She's coming and going. I see her, so I want it to land somewhere. Permanent.
Yeah, I completely understand. I got a reading and they said the same thing to me or something similar early in my journey, and I blocked that girl and I was like, no, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And yeah, now I know, and I say that all the time, that this is a journey to union within yourself.
Yeah, and I did not understand that then yet. Still, I get it logically. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but I hadn't. I just kind of started along the same part of the story, being presented with not knowing really about developing self-love. So I was responding to that at the same time as well. So I'm learning that as I go, which is, maybe a high-speed thing by some, but looking back, it's kind of a trickle for my process. But so then somewhere along the way, I forget what happened in the story, there was another a bit of a drift apart again. But then as I'm going along through this, part of this evolution from my spiritual ascension process, which I always embraced all these catalysts as, if there's suffering, we're the cause of our own suffering. So let me look inside, and why am I suffering? And usually with the twin flame dynamic, it has to do with a lack of self-love or neediness or insecurity, and wanting something that's outside of us, that other person over there. So I kind of started to get that pretty quick and learn and train myself to embrace that as the spiritual process, which is my normal now. I do that constantly all the time. So it's really easy for me to do those processes. But there was a particular day when it was revealed to me through another story that was kind of commingling with this one, that my sole purpose in this lifetime is to be a healer. And that just showed up out of nowhere. I wasn't seeking that. It just became revealed to me. So I was like, okay, this is clearly something, but it just resonated deeply, to my soul. So then I became challenged. Do I want to, I forget what the circumstances were exactly now, but I was offered a choice. And this was the big one for me. Do I want to prioritize the 3D relationship with my twin, or do I want to prioritize my spiritual ascension process to be a healer? And that just became the thing. And it was an easy choice once I asked myself. And it was a really weird yes. It was a powerful yes. I remember crying and everything because I realized I knew I wasn't letting go of the person, but I was prioritizing myself and my ascension process and my soul purpose here as the priority, with no expectation that this person would show back up again. So that was a big, big aha moment, and that changed everything.
That's huge. Finding that self-love to choose yourself and your mission and journey over choosing going after the person that you so long to be with.
Without having any idea where it was taking me at all. It was just a trajectory. Literally, that was it. So that all happens. And then also during this same chapter, late 2017, both my parents passed away 6 months from each other, and naturally so. So I was able to spend the last moments with my mother and literally be there when she passed and be present for that. And that was part of my spiritual ascension process was to really understand, start to really begin to understand our soul journey here, and that we're not the physical body. It's just that's where we're living. We're housed in this body for a few decades, and it's that simple. So I started to really understand that, and in that moment, my mother passed. I was mourning someone dying, and you're missing them. You're not going to see them physically again, but I was able to embrace the celebration of the transition from leaving the body onto the next thing, that whatever we all do, uniquely to each of us. So that was also part of this as well during that season. So that was pretty remarkable.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
I'm busy with all this stuff. It's crazy.
So then what happened after that?
Well, let's see. I ended up coming back into town. I lived near Seattle, so back to my normal stomping grounds and getting back involved with my my friends and whatnot. Then let's see. Some time had gone past, and then of course she shows back up again. Oh yeah, there's a cool story. As soon as I come back to the city, we spent. It was probably the best chapter. We had 3 or 4 months. We did interact very regular and open, and had some wonderful experiences. And then it was, at that time, the biggest catalytic separation at all. Somebody had come in that was close to me, that came in with daggers to cause a wedge out of some really toxic behavior that caused her to run from me. And so I remember New Year's that year, probably 2018, I think. I get this. Started getting these drunk texts in the middle of the night from her. It was really funny, but that's a compliment. Okay, so I drink too.
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
yeah, but it's really adorable. But I'm getting these texts. It had only been a couple months, but she just couldn't. We'd come far enough along to understand who we are to each other. She's like, whatever this person said, I need to interact with you. So it was pretty funny that I got that in the middle of the night. So that was validating, remove the fear that we have in human form that, okay, she's not going anywhere. She's just, doing these things over there. Don't include me. That's fine.
She's got her own lessons while I'm doing mine.
She does. Yeah. And that was awesome. So we continue to validate that we are each other's twin, on and on again all the time. She's very much that as well, but other people don't understand it, and it causes a lot of rift for her still, I'm sure today, with other people that really don't like her even knowing me or whatever. So there's those jealousies and judgments from different people that I have to honor that and respect their perspectives, because they have their awareness, and it is what it is. So
it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like those judgments are also lessons, or it's trying to teach her that self-love, those boundaries, choosing her path over anybody else's opinions,
Yeah.
So it does serve a purpose.
And she's doing that in her own way. And to that point, I learned something before all this, like one of the teachers before, that I've come to continue to understand a little more as I go. We're not clones of each other, but I believe that we are vibrating at the same frequency always, because we are the other half, the male female expression of the same soul. So I've learned some people that teach this stuff I disagreed with earlier, that one twin is more advanced than the other spiritually. And that's never resonated with me. When I hear these things, I've always seen that as that's ego. And so if the more advanced twin is saying that they're the more awakened one than the other, well, guess what? That's called spiritual ego. And you're not. The fact that you're saying that is saying you're not vibrating as high as you actually think you are. You're actually down at the same frequency as your twin. So I've come to embrace that, and then embrace it with honor for her as well. I mean, I have my days where I'm lower vibrational, but sometimes I've learned also that it's her vibration might pull me up, and I might pull her down, or vice versa. So, and this could be during months where we're not even talking, but you start to form this spiritual, energetic relationship that is beyond the physical, that becomes familiar. Then it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have nothing to be down about right now, but then, oh, that's my twin. Yeah. Got something going on. And then a month later, I'll hear from her, and I'll hear what that story was. I'm like, oh yeah, I felt that, because it pulled me down too. So yeah. It's remarkable. So, but that to your point more, that has to do with perspectives as well for me. So she's got her journey to learn her ascension process and embrace the things you mentioned, but those are different physical experiences than mine, but we're still getting the same opportunities and the same frequency to vibrate higher and higher, and keep ascending to higher dimensions. So, but we just do that in completely unique ways.
And I agree. My twin has, maybe doesn't understand all the things that I do about this journey.
Yeah.
But he is more advanced on other things like having boundaries, not being needy, you know, all these other things that I'm still working on. So I always look at it like we mirror each other's energy. We're this, you know, the same. And if I look at him as less than, that's not self-love kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you look, it's crazy because I want to come back to this in a minute though, because I want to expand on that a lot because that's kind of the newest things for me, anyways, is the perspective of our own soul to that point. So then somewhere along the way, I guess it was probably 3 years ago now, I hear she's pregnant, and I'm like, oh, okay. That was a shock. I was literally in shock that day, and then finally, I literally, and now, but I know I've learned at this point how to handle, I teach people these things, how to handle when traumas come along in life, or suffering in general, or emotions like anger, you know, whatever. Those are all a mirror to look inside ourselves. So when we're having these feelings and emotions, there's a reason why I'm angry or sad or upset or whatever. So we all create our own suffering. So if we really get this, it changes everything. And this is part of the ascension process for me, is when our twin is a catalyst for suffering. I can't be mad at the other person. She's going to do what she wants. That is not my business. She's a free person. But if I'm triggered by that, the opportunity then is to look inside and identify what that is and heal it and clear it. And then that allows me to just elevate higher and higher and higher up the ladder, just float up. I see like these shackles with little anvils falling off my ankles every time this happens. And it just lets me float into higher dimensions of love and awareness and everything. So, and so equipped with all of this at this time, I'm like, whoa, this is a big one. And I am about to really suffer. So I went on a 3-day drinking bender, not as a lifestyle, but I know I know what to do, but I need a few days to prepare myself. So I'm just going to numb out with a couple of bottles of booze. So 3 days passes, and I'm like, okay, I got the courage up. I'm crying, you know, but I'm identifying, why am I suffering? Because I'm trying to practice this whole time to not have expectations. I'm doing a pretty good job, honestly, the whole way. But I realized when that happened that there was a kind of a subconscious potential path that we would land on someday and have that life together, and it just became not available in a moment. So I realized that was the biggest blessing for me, without understanding in the moment, but I knew it was. So I'm like, let me just suffer through this, and really, this is a deep one, and this is about me, and really understand why there's something really big to let go of. And I did that. I did all the healing things I knew to do at that time. I went to do a Kambo ceremony with a shaman, and for about 2 weeks, I just my priority is to face this head on, and not sit with this, because I know it's gonna, if I compartmentalize and don't want to feel it, it's gonna fester, and it's gonna come back later someday with some, you know, ailment or whatever, or bad attitude.
Yeah.
I wanted to, you know, I know not to do these things at this point. So I'm like, let me just handle this like a warrior now. And I did it. It was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to transmute this or feel these bad energies, but I know I have to. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you know, I know it's your triggers and wounds that you had to heal, but to find out that your person that you're imagining this life with is, you know, having a baby with someone else, that had to have been very devastating.
All of the things that you experience in human form. Yeah. You know, the jealousy, you know, all of the stuff that would come up, but I got to transmute all of that. And the one aha moment, which was the gift, is I was hiking in the woods one day, and I do a lot of spiritual stuff, just walking around in the woods and just have alone time. And this,
We've done that together before.
yeah, no, it's the same place right over here. It's literally up above that same trail. So I'm over there, and her baby boy appears to me in a vision.
Wow.
Came to me, and I forget what he said now. It's been a minute, but I'm like, but he presented himself to me and acknowledged, like, soul to soul, not as a man to a baby or whatever. I was like, oh wow. But he had some message for me. I forget what it is now, but it was like relief to let me know. I'm like, but I was able to form like a relationship with him in like 5 seconds, and that transitioned everything. I'm like, I honor this other soul, and this is right during the era. I'm also learning that our soul, when we choose to come in each lifetime, we choose our parents. And I'm like, oh, he chose them to be his parents, but he's letting me know, hey, someday down the road or whatever, you know, you're going to be someone I'm going to interact with. I'm like, whoa, okay. So this was a huge, you know, kind of a vision. And it was like, so that really put me at ease, but it also let me raise to a level of honoring all of them, you know, her, the baby daddy, and all of this, and really, really come to embrace it. And just the polar opposite of being, you know, sad or jealous or whatever. So it really helped me really ascend a little bit more on that one.
That's great. The toughest things always do, don't they?
You
Well,
know,
that was a beautiful thing, though.
yeah, and I've learned that exactly. I have and other people I'm interacting with now. So this has all ultimately led me to a series of other events along the way, commingled with all of this, where it was revealed to me being a healer that being a shaman is something that I'm here to do. So I literally just completed 2 weeks ago shaman training, the second one I've done now in the last 3 years. So very deep, changing who I am and everything in that regard. So these things are all part of that process to prepare me to be why I'm here on this planet and to serve my soul purpose. I can't do the things I'm doing spiritually, interacting with my community, if I'm vibrating at a 3D threshold, with just basic human experiences or human feelings and everything. I've just transitioned through all of those and really kind of understand them all now. So with that, when people around me go through some right now, people come to me for guidance, spiritual guidance, not counseling or therapy, but guidance on these levels to understand why am I suffering. So now I can share this with my community. Like someone just came in here the other day. She's like, "Why? I've been crying every day for 10 days." And I just started laughing. I'm like, "Yes, you're doing it. You're breaking out of the matrix, and it's all hitting you at once. And all this shit has tucked away your whole life is all saying, hey, I need attention now. Let's heal and clear this." So I've learned that with these things is the biggest suffering is the biggest, launch is coming soon after that. So I can hold other people's hands as they have these things come along as well. That's fascinating. It's beautiful.
Yes, it is. I've learned that as well.
Yeah. I've learned even recently for myself, in the middle of perspectives continue to change too, as I ascend higher and higher and see new perspectives, which is happening all the time. I see, it just hit me in a moment in the middle of whatever I was dealing with, something not big, but just, it was like a perspective of what we're talking about, that there's such a equal beautiful thing in the suffering. It's not that the suffering is the ugly, dark side of the beautiful thing that's the counter. It is equally as beautiful, just like the flowers growing in the field. And I'm like, wow, now I can really just celebrate when the suffering's there, truly celebrate it, because it is just as beautiful, and it's not something to be, running from and protecting ourselves from.
I've been hopping, getting into that perspective, but still when I'm going through it, it doesn't feel as beautiful. You know what I mean?
Well, it doesn't.
But
That's part of the human experience. We're choosing that. Our soul is choosing that experience to learn spiritual wisdom. Now, this is a big threshold I crossed summer a year ago now. So, and I would highly advise this book for anybody, called the Sophia Code. It's gaining a lot of popularity now. And it's a
write it down.
The Sophia Code, yeah, it's remarkable. It's a channeling this woman had of these 9 divine feminine ascended masters, and she tells their story, and then she has a channeling, which is an awakening of dormant DNA strands we all have in us. So as you listen to these, it awakens our dormant DNA as well. All these different 9. So there's Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Isis, Green Tara, all these goddesses, and so I'm flying to the East Coast and back, and as I'm going through this, I'm doing it on Audible too. I just like to listen to it. And I happened to be listening to, I think it was Mother Mary. And the point that really jumped out at me was the life-changing thing for my twin and for my daughters and for really everyone around me, which is just a clearing ego as well. The perspective is, what does God do when we're suffering?
Sorry, I have to sneeze.
Do it.
It just teased me and went away, I guess.
Idle right here. So when we observe our loved ones maybe going through traumatic situations or something toxic or whatever, all these things, there's a tendency when we care, we want to help them and maybe even rescue them, which it never helps. But what does God do when God is observing us suffer? We don't get a hand down from the other side of the veil and get rescued. We are allowed to go through it. And if we need a hand, well, we can reach our hand up and it's there. But God just observes. God doesn't rescue. And the point is, because from that God energy perspective, we're all on a soul journey here to learn spiritual wisdom, which is why a baby or our twins, that we choose our parents. We're choosing the lifetime that each of us, as our soul comes in, to learn spiritual wisdom on the upper dimension levels that are on the other side of the veil, which is a whole other conversation. But from the perspective of loving watching the traumatic things happen, but we're not feeling sorry for anybody. We're not judging them. We're loving with compassion and joy and glee because we know what they're doing.
Right.
They're either going to get it in this lifetime and learn that spiritual lesson or that spiritual wisdom, or come back again, life after life, until they get it. Then they're on to the next one. So once I learned that, it changed everything as a parent for my kids, my twin, and because previous there was some not understanding, like, why is she doing this? Why isn't she with me? All these things. It just got rid of all that. And like, now I can honor it because those things don't matter. And it's just, that's what she's doing. And that's why we're here. That's really what's going on.
Yes, that was huge. Realizing, that this all has to happen for us to ascend if we choose to ascend in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And it helped me let go of all those, why did he say this? Why didn't he message me? Why, because it doesn't matter. He's got his own lessons. I've got mine.
Yeah. So as I continue on from like that perspective, now kind of getting more to like current time, as I've continued to transition on my unique ascension process, higher and higher dimensions. And I learned that we can't understand these things. We can't understand the things in higher spiritual dimensions from the lower. But once we transition higher and higher, we can look back and we can see where we've come and we're like, okay. So that's why sometimes as we have these experiences, you can't bring them down and explain them to 3D, conversations at all, because it doesn't translate. It's in places where words don't exist because words are just down on this physical plane. So,
Right.
But from those continued awarenesses, and this, I'm coming back to the big point with the twin flame thing. So then I've come to understand more and more in a deep way, like what is our soul? What is this all about? And as my perspective continues to grow, I'm starting to get new questions and new curiosities, because the twin flame community as a whole, a lot of the things I've interacted with are trying to bring it into a 3D perspective. And that's where people give up, or they're trying to put this special sounding phrase into something that's really about attachment or whatever. So there's all these different perspectives. But so now I'm like really embracing, okay, now what is this soul thing really about? And I've had just in the last few months, some really unique experiences meditating and visions and whatnot, where I realized that, understanding the twin flame thing in base form is our soul has so much divine love to give that it has to expand into two bodies to share that with the world. And that's unique to every soul. There's no, this is the way it has to be. It's always unique, I think. So, but really understanding, when I close my eyes, I can see right now the male female half of my soul, which isn't about a girl across town and her body. It's about the oneness of that soul. And there's the male side and there's the female side. And this is the same thing with God and God energy. God, we say God the Father in church. Well, the church doesn't explain why we use the male gender. There's a female side to God energy as well that is ignored in the.
Yeah.
So I've come to really understand that as well and embrace it with all this commingling. So now when I communicate energetically and remotely with my twin, I'm not so much thinking about the girl across town at all. I'm coming into oneness with my soul, and I am the male expression of that in this lifetime, but the female expression is the other half of me as well. And so now the union that I'm enjoying now, which is just in the last few months to come to this, back to my self-love thing from the beginning of the story. Now I'm really getting it. It is a union with myself. It's a union. It's a oneness of my soul. And she, the girl across town, gets to enjoy that as well in her own way also, and come to that. And I'm sure she is, being a mother and having kids and everything. Those are opportunities to understand divine love with another soul and all that a man can't enjoy. So I know that as she's having kids, she's coming to the same awareness on her own as well from her journey, in that regard.
Yeah. It is definitely a divine love with children.
It is. And the divine love is really the thing. I was taught that in the beginning. Like, I didn't know what that meant when I first discovered that with her, when we watched that first video, what divine love even was. And now I'm a living expression of it, and I'm living in it. And I've discovered, as I've continued to ascend higher and higher, that love exists in a very high plane. And I've been able to float up into it, and just, it's all around me energetically. And I'm part of it, and it is me now. And it is, it doesn't run out either. It's not like you're giving your energy to somebody and then your cup is empty, you need to refill it. That's a different kind of thing. This is just something that is free flowing and is beyond even that comprehension. So it's just, it's just beautiful all the time. Even when the dark things come up, like I said, it's just as beautiful as well. And it's just so free. There's no expectations, no conditions. And then consequently, it's just, I'm surrounded by love with everyone that I know in my life right now more than ever. I have no toxic people around me, and everybody I interact with is just a radiant thing. I can see it in your eyes right now that it's the same thing. When I sit one-on-one with somebody, it's these experiences that are just vital, soul to soul interactions of divine love. And
Yeah.
to a certain point, I would say I've arrived with this now. But then at the same time, as I'm coming to these new awarenesses of the soul, I'm like, okay, now there's so much more about the soul I want to understand that's still in front of me. So that's kind of the mission for me now, is to let's just continue to obsess on this ascension trajectory for me, and see where it's taking me, because it's just getting bigger and bigger as I go.
It is. It is. And there's always, once you or level up or whatever, then you're like, oh, now I want to learn about this, or now I want to, like I've been working on letting my light language come through.
Yeah.
And so just, different things. And then little steps that you take every day to not say anything mean about anybody around you, no matter how they behave, or,
We have our human experiences. We want to gossip and talk shit sometimes. And it's like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. I got to just get this out, little things.
Yeah, I've started being like, gonna say something, and then I'm like, oh, she's really good at this.
Yeah. So I've discovered recently also with the soul thing now, this is offering me more questions, understanding that, our perspectives as we're brought up with religion and to society in general, in the 3D vantage point, that the soul is much different than I think we understand. I have curiosities now. Sometimes little trickles of answers are coming to me, as they do. That the soul relationships with other people now moving forward are becoming more powerful than I've had with my twin. I don't know that I'm sure she and I will see each other again at some point, but it's a different thing now. I have no idea what that's how that's going to express itself. But the relationships I'm having now that are new and vibrant on the soul level are, like Jesus and Mary Magdalene. They're explosive like that. And I'm just in awe and wonder. That is how I'm living my life right now too, is just awe and wonder all the time. So I'm having these continual mutual feeding ascension relationships that are just getting more and more powerful all the time. And there's one fascinating one I did want to share. That's an interesting one that's happening right now. A woman that I met a few months ago that's new to me. We met each other organically through another friend, but her husband had just killed himself about 1 year and 3 months before we met. They're 50 years old. So she's going through the suffering that you would, that's as bad as it would get. I would think that I could conceive as, being that person.
Absolutely.
But she'd never heard of Twin Flame. But the day we met, she'd been going to all the doctors and all the counseling, getting ketamine treatment from Seattle somewhere and all these things, and just nothing's working. And I did not know until a couple months later she was planning on killing herself on her birthday because she couldn't take it anymore. So the day we met, I didn't know who she was, or I didn't know anything about her. We just met, and there was just this familiar energy. And she told me the next time I met her that when we shook hands, she's like, this guy's going to help me. She didn't know I was a healer or shaman or any of this. She's like, but there's something here. So that we started interacting a little bit, and then I did bring her to some shaman healing modalities and this and that, and we started to get to know each other. But with the second time we met, I didn't give her the big, this is what a twin flame thing is, but there was an energy that was familiar with her and her dead husband on the other side of the veil, that I'm like, wait a minute, this is who you guys are to each other. And I've met a couple other couples along the way that have that as well. And it's pretty rare because most people think they are and they aren't, in my observation. But so the understanding that energy that exists when twins are activated in a lifetime. So now I've been able to coach and guide her and hold her hand. And I'm currently right now teaching her to be, like I just described, the oneness of the soul. Now I'm showing her he's never not here. His body's just not here, but he's communicated to me and is allowing me to interact with her in this way. So we've had some wild supernatural experiences with him in the room with us, and this is becoming a thing. So and I'm continuing to watch a transformation in her, but just in the last week I've watched her settle into, now I'm here, now I'm a divine goddess. I've never heard her talk like, she had her hands out like Egyptian thing the other day, and so we're like, now your husband chose to leave to give you this blessing so you can expand into the divine goddess that you are in this lifetime and do whatever it is you're supposed to do with the rest of your life. And she's literally at this threshold now. So the interesting thing about twins is it transcends time and space. It doesn't have to be, right here in the physical plane at all. And I'm living this now with her, and it's just blowing my mind. It's just fascinating.
I love that.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
So now you're up to date with my story.
And you and I had a similar experience where we brought our twins in with us and meditated and did Reiki and all kinds of things.
Yeah, and I mentioned that to her, actually, when I first started to talk to her about that. I'm like, so I shared that experience with her. I'm like, there's a thing. Okay, so, and that took on a different direction, but it's just been something I can't even put words to, honestly. It's just fascinating, and it's endearing and so powerful.
I love that. I love seeing that transformation in a person too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
does anybody have any questions for Jim or I about the Twin Flame Journey? There's a little question mark down at the bottom. Go ahead and pop them in there. And then do you have anything else you want to share while we're waiting to see if they have questions?
I could talk for hours, but
yeah,
stories.
I'm definitely going to get that book though.
Yeah, I'd recommend the Sophia Code. The woman who wrote that, she was down at Mount Shasta. I guess that was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago when she that came to her, but she rented a cabin for a month and received that channeling over that month and wrote that. And she said when she was receiving it, it's in the preface of the book, she explains this, but she said the walls of the cabin were shaking and everything. So it was definitely, from the other side of the veil. But so it's extremely powerful. But she did share, I learned later, I'm not much of a reader. I'd rather listen to a book in Audible, or an audio, but she said this is one of those ancient type of channelings that you really want to hear passed down orally rather than reading it. So if someone can get it on Audible and that works for them, she did say it does resonate a little bit deeper when you listen to it rather than read it. So
earlier this week I had on Deanna Chrysalin Vibes, and she channels her higher self and her spirit guides. And I will listen to it. It's YouTube videos, but I listen to it instead of watching it.
Yeah.
And I'll probably do the Audible thing for that too.
I'm going to redo it because I just finished this shaman training. I had to put everything off for a while, just to stay focused on that. But I've got 8 books stacked up to read now. They've been waiting on me. And I know the Sophia Code is going to reveal another dimension of my perspective is so much different. I'm going to really get more out of it the next time through. So I'm excited to do that soon.
Yeah. Do you find when you're listening to it that you start to channel from your own guides?
No, I have not had that happen. That's an interesting question. Yeah.
So whenever I listen to Deanna, that's what starts to happen to me. So I've rewatched and rewatched and rewatched because I miss so much because I'm having conversations with my guides in my head.
Maybe that'll happen this time for me. That's probably why you told me that.
It probably is.
For it.
So, Angelic Healing Powers, Trina, she's my soul sister that lives up in Marysville, wants to know, where did you go for the shamanism?
Where does she live at? Around here?
Marysville.
Okay, so there's a woman in Snohomish that does it. She's more of a grassroots, and she's adorable. I can send you her information, and she does a local thing. So I did my first trip around the wheel, as they call it, the medicine wheel, locally here 3 years ago. And that was able to connect me with some people in the local community and gave me kind of a first step into it all. But when I was originally drawn to it, the Four Winds Society out of Peru is the one I just finished up now. And that basically takes what the local woman would do in 4 series. It takes all of that and does it at once, so over a 6-month period. It's mashed up pretty hard. So, and that's on Zoom and just remotely at home and different things. So that's the way they do that. So I chose to do that one because their other option is once every 3 months, they will have a location around the world you can travel to, and you're sequestered for 30 days and you're locked down. And that's what you're doing is all of it at once. So that's a little intense for me, but yeah. So I can send the information for both of those for sure. Yeah.
I can't imagine the transformation after one of those 30-day things, though. Oh my gosh.
Let me tell you what, as I'm going through it week to week, there's a weekly assignment, and it was remarkable because before I'd even get to what this particular given week's thing was, I would have all the things happen in my world around me that would have been the homework, and then actually be what the class was. So every week it happened in reverse order for me, which really validated that I'm actually, becoming this and a living expression of it, because the universe is bringing me all the lessons live.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so we have some other questions. Let me see here. Oh, these are both from her too. Um, do you know where locally she could do a combo ceremony? Do you perform those?
No, I have two friends that do that. So I can share that information. One is here on this side of the water near Seattle, and the other is over near Port Townsend. And yeah, highly recommended. So if you're,
Yeah.
yeah, in fact, I'm due for one of those now. It's been about a year, so that's been tapping me on the shoulder also.
So I think 2 months ago I did a warrior cleanse.
Okay.
So 3 times within a moon cycle. And I started on the full moon eclipse and I ended on the new moon eclipse.
Oh, nice.
And it was very powerful.
That's how I did my first one too. She said 3 within one moon cycle the first time, so I did that as well.
And I started late. I started on the full moon instead of the new moon, so we had to squeeze them in real quick,
Right.
But I'm feeling like I'm gonna do it again soon too. It's just so cleansing.
It's scary, too, because it's so aggressive.
Yeah, it is very aggressive. But I was taking medications, pharmaceutical drugs, so I got off of all of those and then did it. And so then when I did the warrior cleanse, my body had been fully cleansed of all that stuff. So it really sunk everything in or got everything out or whatever. So I think that's all the questions.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here with me.
My pleasure. Very
We need to get together soon.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe Cambo together.
Yeah, no, me, you, and Trina. Let's do it. Thank you all of you viewers who stuck with us. Thank you for being here. I love you. And mwah. All right, bye.